everyone. We're back for
Hello.
another Parent Pivot podcast. And just before we turn the camera on and the mic on, I don't know if you can see us. We're sitting here in sweaters in our kitchen because our HVAC system decided to go south for the winter.
We have no heat.
We have no heat. So we got a little heater right here. We got the oven door open. I'm good, but Julia gets cold if it goes below 80.
Yeah, it's not
But
80, so I'm not happy.
We're surviving. And we also had a grandchild turn 1 year old the other day. Today. We had the party yesterday. Today was her actual birthday.
Yes.
So she got to celebrate twice. And so I looked at her. I said, hey, tomorrow when you get up, you don't get stung. Nobody's going to sing happy birthday to you. So anyway, that's been fun. So anyway, welcome to the Parent Pivot Podcast. We're glad you're here. We've been just thinking about different things that we wanted to bring up. Some stuff we might revisit a little bit every once in a while because people are mentioning things. And we've spent the last, lots of episodes of the podcast focusing on if you're a grandparent and these types of things. And we have that on our mind just because next month we're going to be at the Grandparenting Summit in Birmingham, Alabama with Legacy Coalition, and we're going to be doing a workshop on it. So that's where our mindsets be. But then all of a sudden I'm thinking, hey, we still have a lot of parents out there in the middle of beginning to pivot.
Right. And I don't know where the conversation came up, but conversation with somebody where we were talking about helicopter moms.
Yeah, helicopter moms. So we're calling this podcast Helicopter Mom Rehab.
Or Rehab for Helicopter Moms.
Or Rehab for Helicopter Moms. Yeah, either way.
Actually, I like. What did you say?
I put Helicopter
Mom Rehab.
There we go.
Yeah, I actually like that.
Okay.
Better.
Yeah.
So, okay.
See, we don't talk to each other. We're good at helping other people parent, but sometimes we don't talk to each other.
Talk to each other.
I have the marketing degree, and so I'm just thinking in my mind I didn't. Anyway.
All that to say, so we thought we'd do like a little 3-point. Here are 3 points for you to help you step away from being that helicopter mom.
Right.
And we want to clarify.
Listen, dads, are you listening?
That if you are a dad who happens to helicopter in the areas that we're talking about, or in a different area, like perhaps sports or making sure your child is doing certain things while they're in college.
Getting the grades so they can go to law school and get that law degree because you got a law degree or architect degree or engineering degree, whatever.
Just that. If you are helicoptering, I'm making that a word, over them for any reason, let's just talk about let's not do that.
And where I would go first, and I know you have a list here, so I haven't even looked at Julia's list, but I always want to start off by saying, hey, we're not trying to come down on you.
No.
However, because a strength, this is what I had going through my mind as I thought about it, a strength overused is a weakness. And so what I want to say to that is I want to compliment you as parents that you've probably likely done an outstanding job. You've paid attention to detail. Maybe you've been overly driven. I don't know. You could be type A. I'm a recovering type A personality. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So all that to say is your heart has been great. We're not here to be critical of that. We're just trying to say our kids have gotten to a certain age and this style of parenting is not going to work.
Right. And I also want to compliment, it takes a lot to run a household.
Yes, it does.
With kids.
Yeah.
To get everywhere they need to go, to get homework done, to get meals made, and to have a marriage at the same time, have conversations with your kids,
and you
maybe
probably
be
haven't
involved at church.
You probably haven't gotten enough strokes for how well you've managed all that. Right. So please hear from our heart that we want to champion that. We're just saying that, that the season has come to a close of doing that. Time to make a change. We want you to pivot, like Ross said at the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah. So the first point I have here is get on the same page as your spouse. You want to say something about that?
If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to have to start picking up on Julia's little look in her eyes because it's kind of like, you need to get on my page.
No, that's not what no. I'm just thinking that's a topic that you like. And so I'm figuring that that's something that you have something to say about.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. In the marriage relationship, we both have each other's backs.
Yeah.
We've been together since dating, however many years you've been married. And a lot of times if Julia brings something up and it doesn't make logical sense to me, I kind of push back a lot. And the other thing is like I can tend to have a super sensitive heart and I'm offended by that. But when we say get on the same page, um, you both need to be on the same page because otherwise your adult kids are going to pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go, Dad, could you please tell Mom to get off my back about calling me and waking me up so I make sure I get to class or whatever it is. Or Mom, can you tell Dad to back off on I missed practice today, but that's because I was sick or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You need to be on the same page. So
same page, and going to your examples, part of being on the same page means that you are directing your child, if they try to put you in the middle, is to direct them back to that parent.
yeah.
So if they're coming to you and saying, hey, will you talk to Mom or talk to Dad about such and such or other, you're saying, no, you need to talk to your mom or dad.
Make them fight their own battles.
Yeah. They need to have that conversation. It's their relationship with that parent. It's that parent's relationship with that child, adult child. And so it is important that you are on the same page where that is concerned, that you are pushing them to talk directly to the one that
otherwise it just becomes a manipulative conversation.
Yeah.
You're doing stuff behind the back. Keep all your conversations honest and open. It's okay to sit there and say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. You're off in college. I was used to, having you at home every night, even if we didn't talk or whatever. Young man that I have who's a friend of ours. And, I think when kids go off to college, parents can miss them. I'm starting to lose my identity and things. And so we get that. And that's why we're saying this is the season of pivoting.
This is a hard season.
It is.
And I will say, even my kids are, 10 years older than that. And luckily, all of my kids are okay with us all being on Find Friends together.
Right.
And so I will often at night before I go to bed, I often turn on Find Friends just to see where my kids are. Because it's kind of this mom thing, like, I don't have my babies in the nest. I'd like to know where they are.
Right.
When they would go away for missions trips or school or whatever it was, man, when I had all of them back home, I was like, oh, I can breathe now.
But
like,
we've literally seen our adult kids all over the world because they've all done some missionary stuff like that. But here's the caveat: you never want to say, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" Because then it looks like you're
looking at Find Friends.
Yeah, then it looks like you're stalking them. That's not that would not bode well for being a helicopter parent. You cannot do that. It's mostly to say, there's my tribe. They're my baby bear cubs. I feel better.
Yeah. It's a hard.
Otherwise,
season.
they'll turn the location off or completely delete it off your phone, and you've kind of lost it.
And you don't want that to happen.
No.
So, like if they forget that you're on Find Friends, that's great. The second point. So the first one, be on the same page with your spouse.
Can I unpack that a little bit? What does that look like?
Being on the same page?
Yes.
We just talked about it.
I know, but
like what does the conversation look like?
Yeah. Like if you're the helicopter parent, and I've been telling you for years, you need to stop doing that. Let the kids go, and you are digging your heels in. How am I supposed to get on the same page with you if you won't listen?
Well, if you are a helicopter mom, it's time for you to listen. It's time for you to humbly, which I know can be very difficult, humbly go back to your spouse and say, okay, I'm seeing what you've been saying for all these years, and I'm realizing I need to take a step back.
Well, and I would even say, husbands, if you need some help with this, I would be even able to say, hey, sweetheart, I love you. You've been this amazing mom to our kids, and just start naming all the things that she's done and whatever. And I know I've jumped in and said, please let them grow up and whatever. I think we've reached that moment where we need to do that. I know cutting the apron strings is hard. Mm-hmm. And then even when they get married, that becomes even another step and things there, because now they belong to somebody else and things. So I would, if you're the husband listening, I would find as many things that I could say, but sweetheart, I think the time has come, the season's come. Here, listen to Stephen. No, that it's time to do that. And really what you want to do, it goes even to a greater question. And you can't ask this question unless you're ready to humbly listen and see things from the other person's perspective. And the question is, what's it like to be on the other side of me?
That's a hard question.
That's a hard question.
We've talked about that
but
many times, but
you're not looking for what am I doing. Here's the thing. We're going to go to what am I doing wrong? I've been a horrible mom. No, don't let Satan get in your head over that. This is not about anything that you're doing wrong. This is about a perspective like, hey, how is everybody else feeling about this? And then listen, going, you know what? God's speaking to me. It's time to shift my style of how I relate to my adult children. And perhaps everybody else is right because they're all giving the same input. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Life is about learning and shifting and changing when your circumstances change, whatever. If you stay stuck and you have your heels dug in, you say, I'm not going to change, you're in for a lot of grief.
Yeah, it's going to be harder.
So anyway, the reason I was asking, hey, what would that conversation look like? It's like the one spouse needs to be in a receptive mode. I wouldn't say time to jump on that conversation the minute your child hangs up on your wife and says, mom's too much of my business. Wouldn't be the right time. I want to wait till she's a little bit more in a better frame of mind. Maybe let's go out for a date night. Let's go out and have, a nice meal and whatnot. Hey, I want to have a conversation. Let's talk about our life. Our kids are moving off to college. What's changing for us? Life's changing for them. What's changing for us? And make it more of a less confrontational conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if it came up at that moment if a child hung up, as your example, hung up on one of the parents, that might be a good opportunity to actually the other parent to ask the question, what do you think we need to do about that?
Yeah.
Because that's very open-ended. It's not accusatory. It's not that you're mad. Right. It's just like, hey, what do you think we need to do about that? Let the person come up with their own.
Right. And if their feelings got hurt by it, you don't want to sit there and say, well, they're right and you're wrong. You want to sit there and say, I can imagine how that hurts and how that feels. You've poured so much into them and to hear that's hurtful. And then we close our mouth and just kind of wait.
Right.
Let them process that. So that way you're earning the respect to be heard because you've empathized with their feelings.
Right. And if this is flipped, let's say dad's the one that gets hung up on, or, there's a problem with him. This is where I found in my experience, it's harder to get men to see it than it is women.
Right.
A woman will go to friends and they'll have conversations, and a woman might come to the realization herself, or she might go get counseling easily. But a man is different.
It comes across
oftentimes they have a bit more pride where they are not willing to look at themselves or say, I was wrong.
Right. So I would say, husbands, if that's you, grab another guy friend and saying, hey, what do you think of this? You witnessed me at the basketball game the other night. Was I out of control? And they probably would have said, just a little. Maybe, or things.
But that's if you have younger kids that your friends are at their games. If they're in college and you're going away to, like, your kid is in sports in college and you're going to, that's a whole different. Right. You're not going to have friends there, probably.
You never know.
But nevertheless, asking someone the question, what's it like to be on the other side of me? This is what we're struggling with our family. Being open, being humble. I cannot stress these things enough. Well, I feel like we say this in every
It all has to do with, I want to justify control. I want to justify that I need them to do this because now I'll feel worthy as a parent. You already are a great parent. Start listening to the father. Let him tell you how wonderful you are as a mom, as a dad. You already are there. Now that they're getting to the age of accountability, which, by the way, I think I mentioned it on the last podcast. Yeah. I never realized this, but when Joshua and Caleb said, let's go to the promised land, the other 10 said, no, we're not. And God got upset with them and said, look, you're going to wander. He told Moses, you're wandering around the desert for the next 40 years. Mm-hmm. Everybody 20 and older was a part of that generation that was going to die off. 20 and older. If you were still a teenager, you were not there at the age of accountability. So think of that magic number of 20. Time to start pivoting.
Right.
So if you're helicoptering or you're slowing down your helicoptering, this is where you are.
Okay, point two.
Point two. Sorry about that.
I have written down here, let's use my glasses. Don't do for them what they can do for themselves. So
Don't call and wake them up.
yeah.
Don't tell them to go to class.
Don't be their alarm clock. Don't say, did you get your homework done today? If they're going to fail, let them fail. And I realize there's a financial burden in that, especially if they're away at college. If you are, paying for their college, or even they're taking loans out and you see the amount of loans that they're going to graduate with, it is a financial thing. But I will say in the long run, even 20 years from now, that failure will make a difference then.
Right.
They're going to go, I never want that to happen again. I never want to see that be that wasteful again. I need to work a little harder, whatever it is. Don't do for them what they can do for themselves. And this includes, not to say, one thing that I hear a lot about, and I probably did it a lot myself, making like our kids' doctor's appointments, even when they're adults. Now,
because they're still on our medical insurance.
Yes.
And they probably still have the same doctor.
Yes.
But they could be living in another city or another state.
Yes. So just the idea of give them the phone number and say, you know what? It showed up in my records that you're due to go to the dentist, or to see, maybe they are in college sports and they've got to get a physical, or they have an ongoing issue in their lives that needs to be dealt with annually or biannually, whatever it is. Give them that phone number and say, you need to call and make this appointment. They need to know how to call people.
Yeah.
They're so used to texting and stuff. And it's make them make their own phone calls. I've even heard of adult parents who still order at restaurants for their adult children.
Oh my.
Order for them because the kids don't like talking to people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this can't happen. They can do their own laundry. They can do their own dishes. Managing money has to be learned. So if they're bad at that, that is something that needs to be learned and taught. And two people on an account can be a good thing. But then you've got to sit down with them and have them pay the bills with you, or let them
have their own account.
Let them watch you,
right?
How you manage things.
Well, I think that's just good. That falls on the instructional side of parenting. When I hear you say that, it's like we automatically think that they're just going to learn through osmosis.
Right.
We need to be intentional. So even as I heard you say all that, the first thing that came up in my mind was, before you get to that point of let them do for themselves, so you didn't do it for them, I would sit down and have an intentional conversation. Hey, you're heading off to college. We're going to drive you there. Hey, listen, we're going to leave you alone. We're going to wait for you to call us. That's not because we don't care. We want to be the cool parents. Step back, let them contact you, because you're going to have a stronger bond into adulthood if you do that from the get-go.
And then adulthood isn't so overwhelming when perhaps they get married or they are completely on their own. Because right now, when they're in college and young adulthood, it's kind of, you're in this shift.
Right. I'll give a good example. We had I don't know if this came out in our interview with Jackson when we interviewed him, but when he was, we were on the high school staff at our church. So the high school church met first hour, and then quote unquote big church met second hour. And I was trying to tell him that we wanted to all be in big church as a family. And, of course, they're bored. They don't get it. The older pastor's speaking, blah, blah, blah. They enjoy the high school worship. And that's great, because at least they're coming, enjoying it. They're plugged into small groups, and they're going. But I said this to Jackson because he needed to know the why. Why do I need to do that, Dad? And I said, well, because this. I said, when you reach that age of 18 and you're heading off to college, I'm not going to be there to tell you, when to get up, when to go to class, when to eat, when to brush your teeth, all that stuff. That's all on you. You get to decide all that. When it comes to church, I said 80% of the kids that come to Christ are going to walk away from the faith, and you're going to decide whether you want to be involved in a church, wherever you're going to college and stuff at. That's on you. I'm not going to force it. You need to make your faith your own. That's a scary thing for any parent to do, let alone a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
But when he sat there and said, look, if you sat in big church and you wrote down one thing that Pastor Dave said, stuff, that would be great. And that's my heart. You're hearing my heart as a father. I don't want to be the dad that says because I said so. All that's going to do is create animosity and resentment. And when we were done with that conversation, Jack went, okay, I get it. And he understood. And I'm thinking, wow, it took me an extra 5 minutes to explain my heart to him on why I was doing that. And it made sense to him. So in the same way, I'm thinking have an intentional conversation before they go off to college or even during their senior year. You're starting to transition that, you know?
That should be happening all senior year. Definitely.
All senior year. You're just
even if they're going to still be living at home and going to school locally,
right,
or not going to school at all, working full time, those things still need to shift. Like if your child is uncomfortable getting gas, they should be able to get gas themselves. I would say too, if they need oil changes.
You know what? All sorts of stuff. They have to learn, oh my gosh, I didn't get my oil changed, and so therefore it caused this extra expense. Guess what? Gotta go out and deliver more pizzas or something.
Yeah. There are a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a releasing of the reins. And so if you begin doing that the senior or high school, hopefully it's going to go easier for you and back off of the helicoptering.
Yeah.
And things. So,
but give them the skills they need. I think oftentimes as a parent, I really struggled with this. I couldn't stand the way anybody loaded the dishwasher. I still can't to this day. And
I always get it wrong
because I will use every inch of that dishwasher before I turn it on. And so when people were younger and they were trying to put dishes in there, I was just redoing it all. And finally it was like, you know what, just let me do that. And that really was wrong on my part because it was a skill they didn't learn because it was easier for me to do it myself.
Yeah. I think the bottom line, I'm thinking about this as I hear you say that, you don't want to create a mini you that is going to be dependent on you into the rest of their adulthood and their marriage. Yeah. Because then it's like, well, then whoever your in-law child is, they're going to go, thanks a lot. You know, you basically handed me a teenage boy.
Right.
Or a teenage girl. You want to raise a responsible adult who can think for themselves, be responsible. And guess what? They're not going to be responsible the first time out. You know, some of us were the perfectionist type A that we are, and we expect everybody else to do the same. No.
You were also very independent at a very young age.
Right. Yeah. I rode the bus to the next city to work all summer at a Polish sausage stand, saved some money, and bought my first car at the age of 14. Yeah. What 14-year-old does that? Not very many. Yeah. But yes, I was kind of off and running. My parents raised me to be independent, and I then independent. Yeah. On the other side, I'm deficient from them of being attached to them emotionally. So that's just my personal makeup.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Point number 3.
I just want to make sure I covered everything. Yeah. Point number 3 is basically tell your young adult that they are capable and tell yourself that you are capable of letting go. Those are you have to do some self-talk to tell yourself that you're able to do this, that you are not going to be harmed from it. Your children are not going to be harmed from it. Everybody's going to be okay letting go. And you need to be telling your adult child, you have what it takes to do this all by yourself. You know, I can help you once in a while with this thing, that thing, the other thing. You know, I would say taxes. That's not something that's learned always.
No, it comes up once a year. My kids are still asking me those questions. But I'm hearing that you want to release them. Shoot, I just lost my thought. You want to release them, and you want to. What was your point? Oh.
Tell them and yourself that.
Yeah, because here's what you're doing. It's a graduation for you. I've done all I can. I'm graduating from being a parent. Celebrate the fact that you've raised this child, this adult child to this point, and you're graduating. There's a lot to look back on and be thankful for. You're entering college yourself. I'm going to be a college adult partner. And I'm shifting. I'm going to be learning some new things. So as you're learning new things in college, I'm backing off because I don't need to spoon feed you anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need to wash your clothes. I don't need to make you dinner. You may eat all the wrong. I'm still eating the wrong things, people. We have this conversation every day. I'm still eating. I'm 63 years old. I'm still being told by my wife I'm eating the wrong things. My mom doesn't care. But that's just a lifelong thing. But the only way they're going to learn is they're going to have to get sick, have crooked teeth with cavities. Did you skip class? I skipped at least a couple of classes in college. Or were you Miss Goody Two Shoes?
No, I skipped lots of classes.
But
in
you know
college.
why? Here's why I skipped.
Yeah.
I'm like going, you know what? I love U.S. history. I used to get the gal I sat next to as a friend of mine. She used to get so mad at me because I wouldn't study for U.S. history. It came natural to me. I could skip class and still get A's on the test. And she would stay up late at night and still get like C's or B minus. And she's so mad at me. So sometimes if I'm skipping, I'm like, you know what? I'm bored.
Yeah, well, I skipped because I didn't want to go. And
But
it also took me 8 years to get through
we
college.
turned out to be some healthy individuals. And
but here we are. We're
my
fine.
U.S. Nobody's ever asked me my grade in U.S. history from Cal State Fullerton.
And both of us ended up getting our masters.
Yep,
And
yep.
all of those things.
We've
and
turned out fine.
We've turned out okay.
We think we've turned out fine. You guys, we're asking you guys to rate us every week, so you can tell us if we've turned out fine or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But the other thing too is when you're the wind beneath their wings, instead of flapping their wings for them. Let me say that again. If you're the wind beneath their wings, instead of flapping them for them, you are going to be their hero for the rest of their adult life. Yeah. Because you're supporting them, you're encouraging them. They're turning out to be unique. They're a different snowflake than you are. Not that you're a snowflake in a negative way. What I mean is God creates us all to be unique individuals. Do they pick up on some things like I watch Tiger Woods or NASCAR drivers and their kids are in the same sport? Well, yeah, because dad's there to teach them and they liked it too. And they're doing it on their own. But for the most part, you want them to find out what they're gifted to do and who they are. You don't want them to say, you've got to go to school and become a doctor or a nurse or an accountant or whatever it is. And I'm going to hover over you and make sure you get it right because you will be paying for thousands of dollars of therapy and grief upon grief for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Now, what if you are the person that hears all of these things and says, I have done all these things. I am not enabling my child. I am doing what you guys are suggesting, but my adult child, is still not thriving. They are still living at home. They are whatever it is. They can't find a job. They don't seem very happy. La 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 la.
Okay.
It's still their journey. It's still their path. Now,
it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. Now, that being said, I need to say too, if your adult child is at home and it is affecting you, you can say something about it. You can go to them and say, this is really affecting me. Can we have a conversation about this? I know you're working really hard. I know you're trying, but it just doesn't seem like you're happy. And I'm wondering, because I'm not happy watching you be unhappy. This is really hard for me. I want to be here for you. I want to be the wind beneath your wings. I want to believe in you, all of those things. But I'm finding that we are all kind of frustrated.
And what I hear is you may be thinking of, gosh, if you just get out and get a job, or if you would just, make up your mind what you want to do, then if A, then B. That's not the case. The case is there's something beneath the surface, like the iceberg. That's like, find out maybe they don't believe in themselves. Maybe they're seeing their friends do things by comparison, and that brings them down emotionally. There could be a bunch of different things, and being able to just have conversations. I don't think it's going to be solved in one conversation. It won't be solved overnight. But to come alongside and say, hey, how can I help? This is hard to watch. Being trained counselors like we are, it's always good to have a third perspective so that they can talk freely with someone about mom and dad
Yeah.
because they have to get that out and barf all over that, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
You want that to happen with a third party, and maybe they can get through it. The needle starts to move in the direction of healthier mental health, emotional health,
Mhm.
because it's not just about getting a job and having an
Yeah.
apartment and living. I mean, life's gotten harder than when we were in college.
Yeah,
It
everything's
seems like.
so much more expensive, and I go back to, you guys remember the Cosby Show, and I think in the very first season, there's this scene where Bill Cosby is talking to his son Theo, and Theo's talking about, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to live in the city, and blah blah blah, and so Bill Cosby gets this kind of monopoly money, and he gives him, okay, so how much do you think that you'll make, per week or whatever? And he gives him this money.
Oh, there you
And
go.
then slowly but surely he takes the money out, like, how much do rent's going to be this much, getting gas is this much. Oh, and you got your insurance that you got to pay, and
Your
blah blah
books,
blah.
your books in college
And then
or
he
whatever.
asks Theo, and are you going to have a girlfriend? And
And then probably takes the rest of the money.
And he took the rest of the money. Exactly. So, but I thought that was a great example of just something to teach your child physically, and again, adult child,
Right.
just
Because they haven't gone through it, and we have. So what's a creative way to kind of bring that
Let
up?
me show you
Yeah.
what this actually looks like. And you can even use yourself if you're open enough to share how much you make or something like that. Break down your salary per week or per paycheck, and then go, so I have to pay for this and this and this and this, and this is what this costs and this costs, and watch them take it away. And they're learning something.
Right.
One thing that I find interesting with this generation, like I remember when we were young, I knew people that rented a house, and like 10 girls or 10 guys would live in this house together, and they were sharing a room. They were sharing rooms. It was, a 5-bedroom house, and there were 2 people to a room. They all moved out. They all lived together. They were all pursuing what they wanted to do, and but they wanted to be out of their house. I don't see today
That happening.
where kids are actually willing to do that.
Right.
I've heard a lot, oh no, I don't want a roommate. No, I can't live with someone. That's going to drive me crazy. And I think, wow, like there's something to be learned even in that stage of life where you're still, and I realized if you've been away at college, you've had a college roommate that maybe you didn't like or whatever, but it's still different when you're
Right.
out living on your own.
There's any number of reasons for that and
Yeah.
things. And please do not encourage them to go on Craigslist
No,
to find a roommate. In
do
fact,
not go
there was a show we watched on that, and it was called My Wild Roommate?
No. The worst roommate ever,
The
or
worst
something
roommate
like
ever.
that. I think it's a
Every
Netflix thing.
single person looking for a roommate went to Craigslist. I'm going, there's the problem.
It was all really bad.
Everything.
Yeah,
went,
I mean, you
everyone's-
want to have roommates that like these people that I'm thinking of. It was usually a
but
group
through church,
from
through the college,
church.
our college
Yeah.
group at church.
We had a huge college
We
group.
did.
So
We did.
anyway, but all that to say, your kids are living in a different world than we did. Things were very cut and dry with us. We graduated high school, we went to college, graduated from college, we got a job, we did this, we eventually got married, la la la. We did it all like, normal in order. And nowadays, I hear a lot more of this as well. People are pursuing dreams. We didn't necessarily pursue dreams.
Gotta get a job, gotta pay for things.
Got a
We were
job,
very pragmatic.
And we paid for things. We were way more pragmatic, way more logical in all of it. And maybe we pursued dreams later, or as we worked, we ended up pursuing a dream. But nowadays, there's a lot of, I've got to pursue my dream, and I'm just not going to be happy.
That can be
unless I'm
frustrating for a
pursuing
pragmatic parent when your adult child has either in college or come home from college, and it doesn't look like they're making any progress. Again, we've got to let them fail. They have to fall out of the nest and land and hurt themselves. In fact, that reminds me of little Florence. She's trying to learn how to walk, and she just bumped her head. We have hardwood floors. She bumped her head, and she's screaming bloody murder. It's the hardest thing as a grandparent to watch your granddaughter scream. But it's like, you know what? Got to be careful when you're walking like that. If I scooped her up every time, she's going to expect that for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So
anyway, give yourself grace,
yes.
Give your adult child grace, have conversations, be humble. These are the same things that we talk about over and over again. And they're important
Yeah.
aspects
Don't take,
to
yeah.
your relationship.
Yeah. You are graduating top of your class in momhood and dadhood. So look at that. Just, we want you to learn how to make a pivot so you can have healthier, longer lasting, stabilizing relationships as your kids venture further into adult life.
Right.
So 1, get on the same page as your spouse. 2, don't do for them what they can do for themselves. And 3, tell your young adults that they're capable, and tell yourself that you're capable of letting go. So
Yeah.
thank you for listening again to our podcast. We are so grateful. If you would go on and rate us, write a review. We love reading your reviews. And if we've said something that sparks some interest, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com. And also check us out at Instagram and Facebook at Parent Pivot Podcast.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
Hey, we'll see you next week for another edition of the Parent Pivot Podcast.
Bye.